Leaving priestly hierarchies from the last podcast, I turn to shamanism, which is usually seen as something primitive in its most unflattering meaning and connected with obscure practices of indigenous peoples who have preferred to keep distance to the modern world. It is often regarded with the same skeptical mindset as our various occult practices. Very few make the effort to give it any serious attention. In the busy, running around of our modern world, most people are happy just to pay sufficient attention to all have-to-do things in their lives. In modern life, there is very little time left over for any deeper reflection. Time simply to think about more than what demands immediate attention: work, family, and material matters. So why at all think about shamanism? We know that practically every modern individual presenting him or herself as a shaman is just another charlatan who is after money for consulting services to the utterly naive. It would be better to consult a certified psychologist. This said, there are some very interesting aspects of shamanism. The word itself comes from the Siberian language, and its meaning is knowing. The shaman is one who knows. Then evidently the question must arise: what does the shaman know that the rest of us do not know? With this question we necessarily move into the philosophy of knowledge and what it is possible to know. Sitting where you are right now, you are pretty sure you exist and that you have a physical body. This is to most people an undisputable fact, as subjective knowledge. Anyone seeing you sitting there will also say they know that you are sitting there. But without observing you, they may doubt it. It may no longer be knowledge, but an assumption. They may believe it or doubt it. Yet it will not change the fact that you are sitting there knowing perfectly well yourself. This may seem too evident to mention, but it demonstrates the subjective character of knowledge. This is even more so when it comes to knowledge about the immaterial and the invisible. Most modern people do not recognize or even wish to recognize anything beyond the tangible. Therefore, why should even they imagine knowledge that goes beyond the physical? When it comes to shamanism, it is obvious that we need to transcend the materialistic way of thinking that has been taught to us from our earliest childhood and more or less force-fed to us at school and university. The materialistic understanding of the world is so heavily placed on our mental shoulders that it keeps us firmly on the ground. It takes some effort to rise above it, so I need to remind you of some of the first podcasts in this series, where I demonstrated the fact that matter is mostly an illusion, a projection of consciousness. This is where we have to go to be able to understand both shamanism as well as parapsychological phenomena and various occult practices. The first knowledge of the shaman or occult practitioner is knowledge about the true state of matter. It is a difficult threshold to pass over because modern man is so deeply rooted in materialism. All over the planet, a number of indigenous nations hold a common understanding of the world which is much less materialistic. They refuse to enter the materialistic prison. Their experience of the world leans on several millennia of spiritual visions of reality and partaking in nature, very different from the modern approach, which, in fact, is just a few centuries old. We have a tendency to call this kind of worldview magical in a negative sense, yet I can assure you it is truly magical. A true shaman rarely appears in the modern world, but it happens. Such individuals are said to have atavistic capacities. In indigenous societies, this is very different. People grow up learning to see the non-physical behind the physical appearances. Thus they are respectful of the magic of nature and prepared for a different approach than modern material science. From their approach comes what I prefer to call insight, a capacity to see other levels within and beneath the physical surfaces. The shaman is one who is selected usually at a very young age by the aging shaman to be his or her successor. When I say his or her, it is because a shaman may be as well a woman as a man. Now this young person receives some special training, learning to move beyond the body and into fields of consciousness inaccessible to most. This ability to shift into different levels of consciousness, even shapeshift at will, is one of the most significant capacities of a true shaman. But there is more. The shaman is obviously an important person in the society, sometimes even the chief, being an advisor to his people, a healer of both health and of conflict, and a guide to the hunters seeking game to feed the people. We may laugh at how the shaman carries out some of these functions by dressing up in the most amazing costumes, chanting, drumming, dancing, and sometimes taking psychoactive drugs from mushroom and herb. But this is important. It is a method for reaching the psychic state where entering other levels of consciousness becomes possible. The shaman may dress up in deerskin, wear a mask resembling a deer, in order to reach the spirit of deerness. Once in that state, he will commune with the deer and know where to locate it for the hunters. Then they will follow his directions and do the killing with deep respect of the animal. This is so far from modern hunting practices carried out as a sport for the fun of it, sometimes respectless from a helicopter with automatic guns. The shamanistic approach to life of other beings as well as other humans resides in thousands of years of closeness to life and the living. It also resides in the knowledge that life is universal and interconnected. This interconnectedness is in fact that which enables direct contact with other life forms and between individuals needless of cell phones. Now you may wonder, why did we not keep the shamanic tradition alive and part of our present society? The answer is simple. There are two incompatible worlds. Religions in particular, the three monotheistic ones, did all they could to eradicate it, killing and burning heretics, by definition, thousands who knew and practiced such tradition. Then modern science fought its way through the religious fog and adopted the materialistic ideology that rules the modern world. The Renaissance was not the rebirth of a shamanistic worldview, but of antique Greek philosophy as the rock underneath modern and mostly materialistic philosophy. It is like spitting on the scripture when I insist that Yeshua, the man we commonly call Jesus, was a shaman. The particular Christian group he was part of existed centuries before his arrival on the world stage. He was part of a shamanistic tradition using the red fly agaric mushroom in order to enter other spheres of consciousness. He eventually used his insights to profess this teaching from his own understanding and interpretation of his visions. This is where both religion and politics join hands to strike down any liberating force undermining their authority. The word Christos is actually a derivation from ancient Sumerian, signifying both the red fly agaric and the highest state of consciousness one may reach by using it correctly. The shamanic use of these mushrooms, as well as other types of psychoactive mushrooms, is well known, and the states of human consciousness they lead to have been studied for more than a century by science. This research proves as far as it is possible that those states are real. We know that the Druids and the Vikings used these substances, So let me take you back to their mythic origins, to the primordial shaman of all times, Odin or Wotan in the Germanic. The story goes that he hung upon a tree for 9 stormy days, pierced by spears, suffering. Then he went to Mime to draw wisdom from his deep well, giving one eye, the unseeing one, in exchange for a different, seeing eye. Finally, I would like to draw your attention to the similarity of this painful initiation into shamanism and the crucifixion of Yeshua and his days in the grave. His death is initiation. He excited this experience with a new spiritual eyesight, having left his blind eye in the grave. Religion has since exploited this symbolism in the most perverted way. I say no more. Beware. The shaman lives in all of us. To raise him out of the abysmal materialism that owns you is a huge undertaking, but it is not impossible. Just read me correctly. It is not about eating psychoactive mushroom. It is just about developing by will and learn to see behind appearances. It's a good idea just to begin seeing and thinking critically.